Hi everyone, I hope you're all very well. This video is all about podcasts. I have a brilliant podcast expert on board to give you all his top 7 tips to produce a podcast. And I'll be adding a bonus tip myself at the end of the video, so do stick around for that. I've produced this video on request from one of my subscribers, Rashida Campbell. Rashida, it was so great to hear from you. She told me she's more of a writer but interested in producing a podcast. Well, Rashida, let me tell you that that's a great place to start from, as you'll be able to write introductions and outros, that's the goodbyes at the end of the shows, and compile interview questions very easily if you're a writer. Now, for those of you who are not writers, don't worry. Being a writer is not essential to creating a podcast, as you'll discover when you hear from the expert. Feel free to contact me with your inquiries like Rashida did, and I'll do my best to deliver. So to create this video, I decided to recruit the help of top industry podcast producer and founder of Carrot Cruncher Media, Pete Allen. Carrot Cruncher Media, great name, isn't it? Now, let me get straight to it. Over to you, Pete.
Thanks, Samina, and hello to you, particularly if you're interested in podcasting. As Samina said, I am a podcast producer. I work here at Carrot Cruncher Media. We're in my little studio/cave area at the moment, which I work in tirelessly for many hours every day, creating lots of podcasts for different clients, ranging from accountancy podcasts to investment podcasts to marketing podcasts and self-help podcasts. We do loads of podcasts for lots of different clients.
So now the introductions are over and you've met Pete, podcast specialist. Let's get back to him and see what he has to share with you.
If you yourself are interested in podcasting and you want to start a podcast, I have my top 7 tips for you. Let's start at tip number 1. And that is understand your content and understand the power of being really specific and niching down into a particular category so that you super serve your audience, okay? So rather than doing a podcast about films in general, if you're interested in films, then niche it down a little bit further and really get to the crux of it. So maybe you're very passionate about Marvel films or James Bond films or Bollywood films or musical films or whatever it happens to be. But what I'm saying is, if you really niche down, you're going to super serve an audience and really connect with them on that level. You have a common area of interest with your audience.
That's a really great point. Niching down is important. So, for example, my niche is careers in the media industry across TV, audio, and film. Think about it. What's your niche?
Tip number 2. Understand your target audience. It's an important one, this. Really important that you understand exactly who you're speaking to, what makes them tick, how to be relatable to them, what they enjoy, what they don't like, what their views are. Have a really good idea of who you're speaking to in your mind when you're doing your podcast. And the thing is, this is going to be easy because basically they're interested in the same stuff as you.
Like Pete said, your audience is primarily going to be people who have the same interests as you. All of you watching today are either interested in TV, radio, podcasts, or film, or all of the above like me.
Tip number 3 is do your podcast for the right reasons. Do it because you're passionate about the subject. Do it because you have lots of knowledge in a particular area. Do it because you want to connect with people and you want to add value to the world. Other reasons which I wouldn't suggest focusing on are you want to become a big celebrity, you want to have millions of adoring fans all around the world, and you want to look at your podcast download figures and get a massive ego boost. Do you know what? All of those things will come to you if you focus on the reason for doing it. Podcasts are quite often a very slow and organic build.
Passion is really important. I'm passionate about sharing all my years of knowledge and expertise working in media with all of you through my videos. Now, what you've got to ask yourself is, are you passionate about the subject matter that you've chosen for your podcast?
Tip number 4 is a big start because Most people have very short attention spans. By the way, if you're still on this video, you're one of the few, because most people turn things off after the first 5 to 7 seconds. So you've got 5 to 7 seconds to demonstrate who you are and what your podcast is about, and demonstrate that quickly.
This tip doesn't only apply to podcasts. Big starts are important, and I have to confess, I forgot to do that in my earlier videos, but you live and you learn.
Tip number 5 is quality sound. This is an audio medium, and let's make the audio sound as good as possible, okay? There are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, many of which do not sound good, many of which are recorded on mobile phones. Stand head and shoulders above the rest by getting yourself a little bit of kit called a microphone. For like £40 to £50 will get you a half decent microphone, which you just plug into your computer via USB. A little bit of consideration about where you are recording, so that we're not recording in rooms that are particularly echoey. So kitchens and bathrooms are out because of all of those hard reflective surfaces. Living rooms, bedrooms, cupboards, great places to record. Quality sound.
This is a great point. Remember that with podcasts, you don't have the luxury of moving pictures, video that is. So it's even more critical to make sure that you have perfect sound.
Tip number 6 is remember that podcasting is an intimate medium. 92% of people listening to your podcast are listening on headphones. So as the host, you are speaking directly to them, directly into their ears. That's why engagement figures for podcasts are so high, is because one person is talking to another person and you have a shared area of interest. Rather than picturing thousands upon thousands of people listening to your podcast, just be mindful that you are speaking to one person, and that's where the engagement will grow.
This is very different from video, where you may have multiple people tuning in at one time. So for podcasts, it's about delivering what you have to say like you are connecting with individuals.
Tip number 7 is call to action. Where do you want your audience to go? What action do you want them to take when they finish listening to you, or when they're listening to you? They're listening to their podcast, they're listening to you on an internet-enabled device. So where do you want to send them? Is it a website? Do you want them to follow your podcast? Do you want them to subscribe to your podcast? Do you want them to rate and review your podcast? Have your calls to action really clearly defined in your mind, and explain to your audience what you want them to do. That is my top 7 tips for podcasting. Do you know what? I'm going to add a little sneaky 8th one. The 8th one is have fun, because it's flipping awesome. I love podcasting, and if you do want a hand with it, you know where I am. Get in touch. Samina, back to you.
Brilliant tips, Pete, and thanks for that cheeky extra tip. So now for my bonus tip for podcasting. Record in batches so that you can bank up episodes. Whatever style of podcast you have, whether it's interviewing somebody or just yourself speaking, try to record at least 2 episodes in one sitting. And why is that? Because life is unpredictable, and so anything can happen at any time, like getting ill or having to work overtime at work. You know what I mean. So having a store of bankable episodes, having a store of episodes allows you to schedule a few weeks in advance so that you're never caught out. Now, this is my call to action. Please do like this video if you found it useful, and do subscribe, as I would love your support. In the show notes below, you can find links to different kinds of podcast production related software, Steve's suggested low budget microphone, and of course, a link to his website. If you have any questions about getting a career in TV, radio or film, or any related questions, do get in touch with me via the comment section below. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and see you next time.